Tim, good to see you, buddy. How you doing?
Hi. I'm just fine, thanks. I'm feeling fine again. Let's call it that
Yeah,
way. It's,
yeah. It's impressive that we that managed to infect you over Zoom, apparently, because I was sick and then you were sick, and it was about the same duration and
yeah.
intensity of symptoms. So
hmm
yeah, sorry. I mean, we're don't worry, viewers. We're feeling fine now, so you're not going to catch any colds from watching this stream.
Yeah, and I saw Justine last week, and I also managed to not infect her or the rest of the team apart from Kevin. So
Apart
my
from
score is
Kevin.
just 1 for 1. So that's okay.
That's not too bad. I mean, I think epidemiologists, if every person who was sick, only infected one other person, that would probably, burn out pretty fast.
Yeah, that's ideal. But, oh well.
But anyway, welcome
But yeah.
everyone to another edition of Code Remix Weekly. We are your usual and healthy hosts, Sam and Tim. So happy to have you. And yeah, we're going to be having a really fun conversation with Justine later on about Moddy, uh, which kind of sounds like someone saying Marty with an accent. I'm reminded of like Back to the Future, like get in the car, Marty. We got to get back to the future, kind of thing, like the doctor. So I'm almost kind of hearing the doctor's voice. Up, that was a cough. I guess Tim's not fully back to normal. Although you were quick on the draw with the mute button. Good on you. But yeah, I'm almost picturing that, the doctor, Doc Brown from Back to the Future, talking to Marty McFly whenever we say Marty.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah. So
so that'll be
good
a
to be
fun
back.
conversation. But first, we probably have some announcements to go through. Tim, are you ready to go through those?
Absolutely. So I'll share my screen and
Uh,
take you just through a couple of tabs of things new in the past weeks. Now, as you know, I was out for
let's
a
check if
bit.
the screen share is working, because the past several weeks we've done this. The screen share, like we've seen the preview of the screen share here, but anyone watching live has not immediately seen the screen share. So I'm just gonna pop over to the YouTube real quick. Okay, I do see the screen. We're good. Let's continue.
Oh good. All right, I did see it on my screen, so
That's
well,
good. That's good.
it's similar to your experience in the past couple of weeks.
Boo. Wasn't my fault. I did everything right. Sam was framed.
So, as you know, I've been out for a week, which means for a couple of weeks, which means that we also had been saving up before doing a new release. So we just did one yesterday, which is smart, starting it like a day early as opposed to the day of doing a live stream. So we actually managed to get it all out the door yesterday, which is pretty good. And I think the top feature is also one of the top requested features that we've put out, which means that we now have a parser for Gradle capable of reading KTS files. So
Yeah,
we'll
thanks to Shannon, MVP open source contributor, for really doing uh, almost all of the work to make that happen. I've said before, and will apparently continue saying it, that if you run any recipes related to Gradle, you probably have Shannon to thank for them working as well as they do, and so clearly that will continue to be true. as now anyone who uses a recipe on a Gradle Kotlin script will be directly benefiting from his work. The core Gradle recipes themselves, like upgrade dependency, add dependency, remove dependency, are in the process of being updated to be, polyglots that work on both Groovy and Gradle Kotlin files. So in this release, you can expect to start to see, those .gradle.kts files parsed as Kotlin sources rather than just like plain text as they might have been treated before. But and probably within over the next week or two, the typical Gradle recipes, you'll start seeing them actually make changes to these. So very exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very good to have this part in. And it's also been helped by promoting the Rewrite Kotlin language module to the Open
Yes.
Rewrite repository. So that makes it somewhat easier to develop those two in tandem and make the necessary fixes there. Not to keep Maven completely out of the loop, we also did some improvements there. So if you were using the .maven config file, maybe to set some properties or some profiles, then those should now all be picked up. Similarly, if you pass in the same while building your project, then we'll also pick those up and be sure that they get set and propagated correctly when it comes to running recipes on anything using those properties. So that's good. Then a couple of weeks back, we saw some reshuffling with our Jakarta recipes, where our Jakarta EE9 recipes were inadvertently making some Jakarta EE10 changes, which of course was undecided, so we made a harder split. But it also meant that our Spring Boot recipes had inadvertently stopped at Java EE9. Now they're back on Jakarta EE10, so that's good. So you should be seeing all the changes that you had hoped to be seeing there. And thanks to a very helpful community member adding the necessary changes to switch to the correct recipe there once again. And we also got some feedback on our Java 21 upgrade recipes. So we made a bit of adjustment to how the URL constructors are migrated. That's because some of the new methods that we migrated to were throwing an exception that was unhandled. So we were a bit more reluctant to make changes there, unless we know that there's no additional changes necessary in regards to exception handling. So there's a split there. And then apart from that, there is a lot of new recipes added. As always, our friends at Camel, they've put out some new recipes. Our friends at Amazon for their SDK for the AWS have also put out some new recipes. And there's been a ton of parser and recipe fixes over the past couple of weeks. I think we had 195 tickets closed in total. So that's a lot of small fixes left and right, which we're not going to list all of them in one small tweet. It was key. But know that there is a lot of benefits to upgrading to the latest versions. And as always, those are managed through the rewrite recipe bar. So be sure to upgrade. And then you should be seeing all of the new recipes as listed here and some changes as well. So that's a place to have that out the door. And then we'll round up with a couple of new events that you could be looking forward to. Now, if you were in Germany today and you wanted to see Merlin present on the 30 years of Java, then there was an event there with that theme where a total of 4 speakers were speaking on various topics, and Merlin specifically was speaking about scoped values, I believe, and the structured concurrency. So if you want to know more about that, I think it's going to appear online as well. So be sure to look out for that one if you're fluent in German. Now,
or an enthusiastic learner.
It's great to learn about a language if you know the subject. So I've been known to turn on something that just interests me if I want to pick up a different language.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm not sure if something that's new in Java explained in German is going to help you very much. But let's hope so.
Hey, knowing some of the context of the domain can help a lot. Then when you hear some other word you don't know, you have more context clues to fill in. My father in his youth, I mean he's American, but he learned German and traveled in Germany a bit. And to try to retain his German language skills, he likes to read novels that he's already read in English in their German translations, or if they were originally in German and also in German, so that he has the context of the plot and everything available to, like, when you just don't know a particular piece of vocabulary, you could just focus on that and use context clues and your other knowledge to help out. So I think if you just know German a little bit, you should definitely go see Merlin's presentation.
Absolutely. That's and he does it amusing as well. For as much as you can trust a German with humor, I'm gonna say that his presentations are engaging to learn as well. So, looking ahead, next week I'll be presenting a mini conference where the subject for the evening is all kinds of miniature talks, and I'm going to be there with a session where you can ask me anything on Open Rewrite, and I'll come prepped with demos and answers, and tell you honestly if I don't know, which I hope is going to be rare, but we're going to find out in Den Bosch next week. So if you're nearby, check it out. It's gonna should be very much fun to do.
What question are you most afraid someone will ask you? Maybe
Probably.
something open-ended that puts you on the spot like that?
I was gonna say something in detail about like the Gradle parsers and plugins and the inner workings there.
Yeah, there you go. So,
It's been very helpful to lean on you in part and Shannon in large part to get answers there for the wider community. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, when up on stage, I'm not so sure I'll get a timely answer to get back to folks there.
Fair enough.
So then, a bit further ahead, start of next month, both Merlin and I will be at Javaland, which is going to be at the Nuremberg Ring in Germany, where Merlin will be presenting in German. If you want to kickstart your migrations, Grundlagen des Migration Engineering mit Open Rewrite. So that's just your basic Open Rewrite getting started there in German. It'll be a 40-minute lecture. If that's a bit much for you, then I'm doing a 40-minute session on generative AI on millions of lines of code. Just showing you maybe some of the things that you'll learn today and how those apply to making code changes at scale through generative AI using OpenRewrite and Moderne.
So if as a viewer you see Tim during our conversation with Justine today hastily scribbling down notes, he's preparing for this.
I'm counting on this one making it onto YouTube without glitches. So I'm gonna lay
So you
off
can
on
go
the
back and
notes.
watch it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I know Mike is gonna transcribe it as always, so that's gonna be perfect as well. And then I can just click through and hope that Justine shares the slides, and that should be fun with my prep.
I'm sure if we ask her nicely, she'll let us have a peek at them later.
I hope so. And then, of course, a little further out still is going to be the Code Remix Summit that we have in May. I'm really looking forward to this one. So we already spoke to when we can see the tickets selling out. We know some of the folks attending, not just presenting, but attending as well. And it should be really fun to engage with them, get them onto their use cases that they're looking forward to. And this is going to be a ton of fun. So if you want to be there, we have some tickets still. You can go to coderemix.ai, and I think we should have a promo code still, I believe. If not, then reach out and we're gonna figure out something for you still.
Yeah, if you want to come and like a promo code is here you go. They're scrolling on the screen now. But if you wanted to come and a discount of some kind was the final barrier between coming and not, send Tim or I a message. We could potentially hook you up. And we're having several people from our open source community and from various Moderne customers who are now attending. So there's going to be a really fun group of people there to hang out with, swap tips with on using Open Rewrite and Moderne tools. Going to have, frankly, all the best recipe authors in the world in one place. So if you had a recipe that you wanted to write, or you're like, man, I wish Open Rewrite could do this one thing, no better place to make that feature request. Particularly because we can't just close the Zoom window if you're asking us in person,
I don't know. And of course, if it's also a great place to network. If you enjoy this type of work, maybe you're part of the open source community, but when you use it day to day more, then this is going to be a great place to meet a number of different customers using Open Rewrite and Moderne, just to see how they apply it, and maybe they'll have some vacancies for you to consider. So,
Yeah.
recommend attending.
Yeah, so that'll be good. Yeah, hope we see you all at Code Remix. So let's see, Tim. I think we had a new segment. We're going to do that before the interview or after.
We can do that now. Yeah, sure. It was
All right.
hidden behind some screens. So we figured it would be nice to give a bit of a highlight of interesting things that have popped in the community over the past week or so. So to that end, I'm going to share just one favorite question that I saw come in. Can I even share that type of view? I don't think so. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. I'm gonna take a screenshot and then try to share that screenshot with you. And let's go for window image here. This works. So this is a quick screen grab from a Slack thread that we had over the past week, where you saw that Francisco had a question about he wanted to tweak things just a bit on the way that our assertions work in the unit testing framework that we have. Basically, he wanted to just shut it off, partly, with some of the validations that we do, which I could see when starting out that they might be somewhat hindering you, and all you want to do is assert that it kind of just, it looks mostly okay. It's just the formatting is off, and maybe the imports aren't quite what you want it to be, but you just want to have your test to be green and continue on with the next thing. Which I know it's a valid question, but as you can see from my answer, we actually put all of that in there not to be hindering you, but to make your tests more reliable and your recipes more reliable. So that's also to that end what I added to the reply there. And of course, it's not exactly what I'd hoped to hear, but it is going to be the one thing that helps improve the quality of their recipes. So much so that we've also added this to the documentation. So I can switch to the docs and see that we've now added this to a frequently asked questions list that we maintain in the Open Rewrite docs with the exact same content and questions as well here. So really pleased to see a question pop up and have that be something that is just not something that is only going to benefit one person once, but actually going to help going forward. That if it pops up again, we have this question.
There is one thing I want to add to this answer. I would say what you said is true. That it is a good idea to wherever possible be making an assertion about the exact literal thing that the recipe will produce. Not least because it makes your test very readable, right? Before, it's a string, you look at it, you see what it is. After, it's a string, you look at it, you see what it is. Everyone can see and understand what this test is asserting. But there are times where maybe you want to validate something about the LST itself after the recipe has run, and there is actually a way to make assertions on some of these subjects. Where if, for example, I just found this test in Maven parser test, which I happen to have open, there is for all of these source spec assertions that take a before and an after. There's an additional parameter where you could supply a lambda, which has this after recipe kind of callback that you could use to make additional assertions about the state of the LST post recipe run. So for example, this is a Maven parser test that wants to make some assertion not about the literal textual contents about the file, but that the parser modeled some of its metadata correctly. And so you could do this in recipes as well if you wanted to, make something programmatic. But this is for most recipes and most tests most of the time. Something like this is a whole lot less readable than just like, well, what's the exact text you expect the recipe to produce? So I think I'll go respond and mention that this overload exists, but there is not, speaking to his original question, there is not like a utility function in here that you could call to be to simplify. To do more specific assertions. This is very open-ended. Like go write your own assertion for whatever little thing it is you want to validate. But most of the time, this is going to be harder and less convenient than just putting the exact text you expect the output to be. But there are situations where it's called for, particularly if you were like if you're doing a parameterized test where like you're filling in a bunch of different options and what the output is expected to be is going to vary based upon the parameterization of the test. You might need to do something like this, and so you could find examples of that throughout the code base as well. But yeah, good question. I think we're going to try to make it a regular segment going forward
Yep.
of some of our favorite or what we think are maybe the most useful answers to share with everyone in the community. So look forward to that. And then for today, I think it's about time to bring on Justine to get to the main topic. So, hello, Justine. How you doing?
Hi everyone, I am good. Slightly recovering from DevNexus.
Did you didn't catch any bugs or illnesses while you were there?
I might have. I'm so sorry, Tim. However, I'm on my second day of a cough and no fever, so that's
That's
a
good.
that's a win for me.
That's.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm gonna say that's a different one. Then. That's. I was not
Yeah, yeah,
involved
yeah.
at
It's
all
the dry
here.
air from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
airplane, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's.
There's enough reasonable doubt that I don't blame you.
The responsibility has been laundered. Yeah, she holds you're fractionally responsible.
Hmm. And it was worth it even to see you a few hours if I did get sick.
There you go.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
Thank you.
So
And the
so
stroop waffles. I gotta say, I
oh yeah,
was
stroop waffles are good.
hyped.
I do like stroop waffles. I learned stroop waffles and Tim is like the national confection of the Netherlands, right? But it's two like little hard pancake kind of wafers with syrup binding them together, and
Yep.
it's a tasty cookie on its own. But I understand the true way to appreciate a stroop waffle, and maybe just you let me know if this is how you did it. Was that you like set it on top of your coffee or your tea mug and let the heat and the steam kind of like soften it and melt the syrup a little bit so it's soft and gooey and delicious. Is that how you were able to appreciate your stroop waffles, Justine? Or
No, I had mine cold for dessert and it was still delicious.
it's
But that
still
is
good.
how
It's
Nadav
still
said
good.
that you're supposed to eat them. So still
So now you know
delicious.
Maybe
for next time.
I'll bring more in May. Then it should be good.
Perfect. I still have some too, so I need to try it out.
Excellent, excellent. So Justine, are you a Back to the Future fan? When you talk about Moddy, do you hear Doc Brown telling Marty McFly that he has to hit 88 miles per hour on the gigawatts to do time travel?
I could be a good friend and lie to you, but no, that is not the
No, you
first
don't hear
reference that came to
that.
mind.
It's all right. You can tell me the truth. I can handle it. Okay,
Maybe that's
that's
what good
fine. It's
friends
it's
do. They
just
do
me who
tell the
hears
truth.
that. That's all right.
Yeah. But you know, I like the name a lot. Moddy is
It's a
really
it's a
fun.
cute name, yeah.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about our new friend Moddy.
Hmm.
What's it do? Why? How is it different from Chat GPT or Copilot? Like what's the deal with Moddy?
What's the deal with Monty? So a couple weeks ago, I actually came on Code Remix as well, weekly,
Yeah,
to present Mod Agent. So that was kind of like the
the
caveman
prototype.
ancestor, of what we have now.
Uh
Now
huh.
we have the full thing, ready. It's really fun to play around with. So the main difference is really about what it has access to Moddy. So Moddy, what we realize is that, whether you're using Open AI, Anthropic, all the other providers, they tend to be very similar. Yeah, sure, some models might be slightly a little bit better for one kind of use case, but in general, if it's pretty like simple what you're asking, there's really not much difference between one model or another.
Hmm.
However, there is nothing like Open Rewrite.
Hmm.
So that was the whole idea, right? It's you want to give those models access to a tool that they don't have access to. We kind of saw that like you could switch out the models to whatever you want, and that's really how Moddy is built. It's really bring your own model, so BYOM, and then on the platform, that's where we supply Open Rewrite. That's when we run the recipes and give access to the model to a couple different tools to let it be able to do all the good things that we need to do, and that's really the big difference.
So you mentioned BYOM, bring your own model. So that means that Moderne or OpenRare, we haven't trained our own model. This is a thing where if you're already using a model provided by some other source of LLMs, you can augment it with this functionality.
Exactly. Yeah. I really like the word augment in that scenario. The, it's not our prerogative to train those models on code. We often don't even have access to the code of our customers. They have a private
Correct.
instance. We would not even be able to do that. Um, and it's theirs, right? We don't want to train the models with that.
Mhm.
However, we can run recipes on their code really easily. And that's something we can definitely provide and augment the models with, basically.
Why would I need to augment a model's capabilities in this way? Can't I just say, "Hey, Copilot, go rewrite 100,000 files for me to be on the latest version of Spring Boot or whatever"?
Mm-hmm. No, it's difficult. It's, I mean, there's a couple kind of reasons why you don't want to do that. The first one is time. You can see it now, like especially when you start looking at models that do chain of thought, that are like kind of more verbose without showing you the actual results until the end. It can now take up to a minute to get a couple paragraphs. That's because
Mhm.
in the background there's a lot of planning and in text that we don't see as the user, basically. But so if you're passing in, you know, thousands of lines of code or millions of lines of codes, thousands of repos,
Mhm.
that it becomes just not feasible. It's going to be something, even with the fastest model ever, you've got 100 GPUs, whatever it is, it's still going to take a lot of time.
Right.
So, we've said it before, but why butter your toast with a chainsaw? So
And we, of course, know the answer to that is because it would be really exciting and fun and
it,
possibly extremely messy.
exactly. Unless you got a poncho, don't do it. So so that's the first one. So latency, that also comes with cost, right? If you have to look at every single line of code, that's a lot of text. Then there's privacy issues as well, although that can be mitigated with having your own model be running
Right.
locally, but that's another type of expensive.
Absolutely.
So that's the first one. And then there's just also the accuracy. Like
Right.
if something makes, and if a model makes an error sometimes, very rarely,
Mhm.
but it does happen, and you have, that much more code, then it can get really difficult to find that bug. We actually, even Jonathan once had a PR and it just wouldn't build, and he couldn't find why. And it took him, a little bit to find it, but finally he did. And it was because an LLM, some like co-coding or coding buddy LLM, without naming names, that basically put in a typo, and it was some sort of path that was basically messed up. And we were
Yeah.
actually interestingly been able to find the Stack Overflow post where
Ah.
that was actually from. So we talk about that example in the book if you're
You
a
could
little bit
see
more
it. You could
curious.
see, occasionally find the training data.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
Javi
it.
home.
Yeah, it was Jave
Oh.
Home instead of Java Home, which is, when you're looking at an IDE and you're not like trying to
Be so hard to see
proofread.
that because
Yeah.
your eye would just go right over that. Like, yeah, obviously it's Java home.
Mhm.
Obviously it is. You see what you expect to see. So I've always found that one of the hardest things to debug are your own assumptions about what you're seeing, and if the code changes have are not even made by you, or not even made by a human. Your
Mhm.
uh, your assumptions about what it's putting in there might be more divergent from reality than your typical
Yeah,
state.
absolutely.
And
And it's a
and
really hard. Oh, sorry.
it does give you a new appreciation for the folks who tirelessly go to Stack Overflow and edit a small typo and a post somewhere, which you know is going to help the training data next time around.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
But and in general, it's a really hard task to generate code at scale like that. I have some, can't really call them colleagues, but some people I know from Mila and Google who are, running experiments on if an LLM can do migrations of big Java projects for Java versions. And the most common fail case is the POM files, which you really wouldn't expect. And it's valid XML, like that's not the issue. It's not in the decoding part, but it's unable to follow the standards and the conventions, and it ends up breaking the project just because of that. So even what you would expect to be really simple ends up being pretty difficult in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. All right. So shall we poke
Yeah.
around the beast?
Yeah, let's poke the beast.
Perfect. All right. So here I have a small default, which is just a subset of the typical default organization that we have.
Mhm.
So here is what Moddy looks like when you start it up, basically. And we have these 4 little queries or prompts or questions that you can ask to kind of give you an
Suggestions.
idea, suggestions, yeah, of what you can, ask Moddy, basically.
Mhm.
And you'll see that, some of the questions we're asking are more about searching and coming to conclusions and understanding your code, but you can also just run any type of recipe here. So if I did want to say, upgrade Spring Boot, then that's something I would be able to do in the background. So if we look at, the steps that are happening as we basically run, this chat or ask it, we it'll first look for if we have recipes. So what that is called in the LLM agent world, that's called using a tool, and that tool is searching for recipes. So instead of having a tool for every single recipe we have, which is over 3,000, we realized that we could just have the model kind of like look through a catalog of like, what tool could I use for this? Don't I have a recipe for this? And so that's exactly the idea. So I can see the results here, and you'll notice that, this is not really the best version of Spring Boot that we can do. We can do better than 2.7.
Mhm.
So here it says I'm multiple upgrade recipes. However, they seem to be for specific versions. Let me search for more comprehensive Spring Boot. So it's able to call basically this tool about searching recipes until it's satisfied. So here we're pretty happy with that because now we actually see 3.4, which is what we wanted to use. So before it'll run the recipe, it'll also do a little bit of research in the background, look at, data tables and if that recipe takes in options, and then it'll be able to actually start the recipe. So if we go look here, we can still follow the results just like a normal recipe run, but instead of having to click, okay, fine, Spring Boot, click on that one, figure out options, we have the LLM that did it all for me. And it was a very quick process to get to the link to the actual recipe. So this recipe will be running in the background, and once we actually have the results, that's when Moddy will be able to chat with us about the actual results that it got. So that is basically the main flow of how you would use such a tool.
Mhm. So this kind of having these tools kind of empowers the model to call out to a recipe when a recipe would be better at doing the thing than the model could on its own. I think
Exactly.
I've heard you say things like it's like giving your language model a computer. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as you've
Yeah,
sometimes
absolutely.
likened what these language models as if not like people, but being good at the things that computers are bad at and bad at the things that computers are good at. So it's kind
Yeah,
of like give your computer the model so that it can be good at the things that the computers are bad at, but then give that model tools so it can be good at the things that it can flesh out that kind of a matrix.
exactly. Yeah. And what's really cool about this, and that's the part where I've been using it the most, is sometimes you don't remember exactly. All right, Apache Commons. I know it's something Google. I can't remember exactly what the method pattern should be if I was looking for method invocations. So that's like where it's really fun as well. It's real, like models are really good at figuring this out and memorizing it. So here, when I'm asking about Apache Commons, it'll be able to, all right, first let's look at the recipe. It'll find methods or find types. And from there, it will be able to actually fill in the options for me. So that's really fun when you're, working and you don't want to kind of lose your focus, to have it enter that information for you and kind of take that mental burden from you. It's really powerful, and it's great also for a beginner that might not even know that find methods recipe uses method patterns. So if we were to click on this one,
Yeah, the discoverability of recipes in the catalog. I mean, I don't know. I work on this every day, and I don't know what all 3,000 recipes are, right? And
Yeah.
only more recipes being added. So it's definitely been a challenge for us and for the open rewrite ecosystem to be like one of the most common questions we get is just like, is there a recipe that does X? And it's like, yeah, I can't blame you for not knowing. How would you go about answering that question? And so having something
Exactly.
like this that can make recipes more discoverable is a huge help for that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's great too is that it ran the first recipe, but then it wonders, okay, well, what about types? This was methods, which is true that when I asked, how am I using Apache Commons, I wasn't really clear about what I was looking for.
Pretty open ended.
Exactly. And so then if we go look at find types right here, then we can see that it's also run that here, and we'll be able to see the different types too, not just the method invocations. And now I could say, what repos uses the most Apache Commons? And then I'll say maybe let's do method invocations to be precise. Then I'll be able to, write to me about that. So it's going to run the recipe again, I think there was a little something wrong with the download over here of the data table, but basically it then has access to that data table. So in the same way that as a user, I now have to click some more data table, download, it has access to that. It's able to take that data and actually ingest it and actually come to conclusions and discuss it with you. So if you just wanted to make sure, okay, well now you found all these types, and for some reason I don't want the types to be in a file name, food.java, then I could say, was that type used ever in the file food.java? And that's information we have in this data table.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea is that you're able to really have a truly powerful coding buddy, not just someone that can, finish the end of your line while you're coding or write a couple lines at a time. We're talking about someone that can search, thousands of repos really quickly and that you can then discuss with and chain multiple recipes.
When this is running, uh, does Moddy either through tools or any other mechanism. Like if I'm in my IDE in my editor and talking to Copilot or something, it will put into its context window like the source files I have open and be able to converse about that. Does this have anything like that for like the LSTs I'm running on? If I ask Moddy questions about the source code, does it have that same context, or is it always going to kind of have to go out to a recipe to answer these kinds of questions?
So that's what's the great part about this is that, Copilot and what other coding buddies, however you want to call them, coding
Sure.
assistants, when they add in extra context, when
Hmm.
you're asking a question, they're still limited by tokens, right? Or by how much
Absolutely.
text they can
There's
actually
some
put.
finite context window that they can accept. Yeah.
Exactly. And even if they have, something crazy like a million tokens context window, they're still limited just because otherwise there's too much noise and you just get less good
Right.
less good responses, and it just gets more and more expensive and more latency gets introduced. So the idea is that you don't need to do that kind of trademark between more context and worse
Hmm.
answers, and find that balance here. At all times, you have access to all the LSTs, which is
Hmm.
full fidelity. So you see everything in your code is there. So
Hmm.
you can definitely, run this on smaller set of repos using organizations. But, at the end of the day, you don't even have to make that decision. You don't have to choose. It's not Sophie's choice isn't there anymore. We've got it. Sophie's happy. She can
Sophie's
code.
choice about which of her children she has to kill. That's a dramatic
Exactly. She doesn't
example.
have to decide what she needs to add in her context. Sophie can have all of her children as in context.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So but joke aside, that's really what's great here is that it's super quick and you just have access to everything now. So why even just get a subset before? And you'll see that, like, at least for me, when I'm coding with, again, unnamed coding assistants, I sometimes it's very clear that if you had just brought in another file, and my repos tend to be pretty small. I don't really go into mono repos that much. and it still missed out on the file that I needed for it to be able to generate what I needed on another file, whatever I was actually editing.
Hmm.
Like that's kind of disappointing, right? So
Right. Yeah. So does this? Yeah. The example you've kind of given here of like how am I using Apache Commons? I could imagine someone like, okay, the next log4shell style vulnerability has come out, some common library that you use everywhere. Um, your first question is like, well, what is my exposure to this problem? You could easily see someone coming to something like this and being like, what is my exposure to log4j or what, or whatever the library or platform in question uh, happens to be at that time.
yeah, exactly. So in the meantime, the recipe is done running, and what's great is that it can give you, a summary, something that you can read really quickly. That's not, you don't have to download a CSV and start looking through that anymore. So
Hmm.
similarly, you can look here. What's great too about this, and your log4j example is what got me the idea, is that you
Wait,
could
hold on.
say,
Before we leave this example, just seeing the result makes me think of like a common question that I have working on and maintaining a library is like, who's if I change this thing, like who uses this feature, right? Like if I delete this code, who's going to be affected? And I've obviously gone and done, I know that find types and find method usages exist, so I have gone to those recipes to answer those questions before. But now I could potentially come to Moddy and just be like, hey, if I delete listutils.map, who's gonna be mad at me,
yeah,
and use it to ask and answer those questions.
yeah. You could do like, here's a list of vulnerabilities my colleague just told me about. And
Oh,
then you could, oops, I sent it too early. But then you could,
it probably meant
it's
to
going to
actually
be
include
like,
the list
oh,
in the
you want to
query.
use the find vulnerabilities. But I could,
Fair
copy
response. Fair
like,
response from Moddy on this one.
yeah. Yep, that's very true. Thank you.
This is a great demo of how it responds with a partial query. This is good.
Yeah, exactly. So then I could, if I have a multi-line thing, you don't even have to, you know, parse it in the sense of, if it's given to me as a list of strings, or if it's given to me as, a JSON or anything, something that I
Yeah.
couldn't just directly plug into the builder or into a YAML list of find method usages.
Hmm.
Now what I can do is just be like, okay, first one is foo, second one is Apache add, whatever. And then you can keep on going. And this is really just an
Hmm.
example. But that's the idea here, is that it will run one recipe after the other for you and look at
Hmm.
these and tell you, okay, for foo, you're good. For Apache, you're actually not using it. Oh, and for n, oh, you're using that one.
Use in all the time.
I know, my favorite method usages.
I think there's gonna be at least one npm package named n.
There's gotta be. There's probably multiple. It's probably like some alternative to Simver, where rather than like incrementing version 1 to 2, you just add another n on the end of the of the package name.
I love that.
Maybe a counting or maths
For, for,
library, perhaps.
for when you keep losing your public credentials, you just add another n on to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what's really great. And a line that I keep saying is like meeting the user and their workflow. It's
Hmm.
it's nice when you don't have to lose your focus on what you're doing and still be able to use those tools, as you're working on a problem. And that's really the part that I see it's going to be the best. It can then, analyze the data too. It'll do some SQL to find, some information on the data tables based on what you're asking. So if you ask for like, give me all the unique repos where you found X, Y, and Z, it'll be able to do that post process of the data table for you.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it is. Uh, it's a great example of what these assistants can be good at, and in terms of taking information and synthesizing it for you and summarizing it. What I really like about this, as opposed to just asking the LLM to do something directly, is the auditability. If you go to like Wolfram Alpha, which isn't an LLM based solution, but if you go to Wolfram Alpha and ask it, hey, solve this problem for my calculus homework for me, it shows you the steps that it goes through to arrive at the answer, and in a way that these LLMs typically don't show you the steps they go through to arrive at the answer. Whereas with this, you can see it ran this recipe with these arguments, produced these data tables, and you can go and look at each of those steps yourself and be like, oh wait, I didn't get the result I expected. What happened here? Oh, I see. It was looking at this. It summarized this data from the data table, not this other data. Or oh, it didn't call the recipe with precisely the right arguments. But now that I'm looking at it, I could like correct it and go run
Mhm.
that myself, or ask Moddy like, hey, try it with this argument instead, kind of thing.
Exactly. Very well put.
And this, at no point are you waiting 30 seconds to get back some magic answer that is just not correct.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we could still end up waiting 30 seconds to get back an answer that isn't correct, but we would at least maybe be able to have
You know
some
what it's
insight into
doing.
maybe why the answer wasn't correct. So Justine, are all of the recipes in the catalog now made available as tools to Moddy? Like does it know every single recipe, or just
Yes.
like ones that we've like pre-configured?
Very good question. Yeah, every recipe that's there, it has access to. And
Wow.
so if this, gets deployed to a private instance and you have your own recipes also, they'll have access to that. That's really,
Oh,
in the background, it uses the same search that you see in the top left with that magnifying glass. That's,
right.
why rebuild the wheel? We have a great search. So,
Yeah. So for some of these ones, I'm just remembering some of like the earlier versions of this when it was mod agents or as yet unnamed, provided hints in the tools around like how to use like how to supply a method pattern, for example. Are we like specifically including in like the prompts to Moddy like general descriptions of like how method patterns work, so that whenever it sees in any recipe a method pattern parameter, it kind of knows how to handle that?
well, so what we did instead of, having all the different things like kind of patching the
Uh-huh.
descriptions for recipes, we said, why not just add more description to them, to the recipes? So
Uh-huh.
any recipe now with a method pattern, you might have noticed, got a little bit more description about 3 weeks ago,
Hmm.
because we were like, this is something that maybe it'd be great to have more context just for a user that wants to use the
Of
recipe, but
course, of
also
course.
the model. So instead of patching each time we're like, ooh, it's clearly failing at calling this recipe with this option, we should give it more context what we mean by this type of
Right.
option or argument.
So do we prompt it ahead of time with like, when you see the words method pattern, this is what that means. Like this is the structure of a method pattern. Like is that described to Moddy anywhere? Or is it getting that just from the parameter descriptions?
Just from the parameter descriptions, yeah, and the recipe description. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting, interesting.
You can, if for some that are a bit astute and look at what we release, you might have seen the descriptions for like a bunch of recipes that use method pattern. Just suddenly in one day,
Get a little bit more
oh god,
verbose about what a method pattern is and how to call it.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. That's good. Do we? So that's interesting. So for like uh like for talking about like Apache Commons, like there's some mappings here that like for this like Apache Commons example of uh, like Apache Commons is like the group ID or like the artifact ID, or kind of an umbrella term, and then like find types or find method instances is going to be looking for like based on fully qualified package names, which are often similar to but not exactly like the group ID. I don't imagine necessarily that we have made like an index of what symbols provide what types, or I mean, I guess some of that information actually is in the LST as type attribution. Is Moddy able to like it? I don't know that we have a recipe that like extracts that or makes some of that metadata available. Have we taken steps there to expose like some of this information, or is some of it like hard coded that like when you see guava, it's gonna be like org dot or com dot google dot guava or whatever.
Hmm.
This kind of maybe
Yeah,
vaguely formed, but I'm just like earnestly wondering how some of these mappings are put together.
it's a good question. I think for most of them, we didn't see a need because they're well known, like that Apache Commons is
Sure.
Google org or whatever
Right.
is the actual name of the dependency. that wasn't really needed. And if ever you do ask it about, something that's proprietary, like no one else would have this dependency,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, ooh, I don't know what you're talking about, it can ask you, is this what you mean? There's going to be, if it doesn't know what dependency you're actually asking about, it
Mm-hmm.
will sometimes ask you. It tends to just go ahead and run it because that's what we prefer. We want it to be,
Sure.
you don't want to have to wait and be like, yes, you can do the thing. Just do the
Yeah,
thing.
have it just try something. Yeah. 'Cause
Exactly.
if the
So,
recipe run doesn't produce the results you're hoping for, well, no harm done. Run another recipe.
and it's so quick to run a recipe for something that doesn't exist because of
Yeah,
all
it's
the
true.
checklists
You
that
get
we
back no
have.
results pretty fast.
Yeah. So that's the good news as well about that. There's not a lot of risk. But it's true. There is some recipe like find all available types or list all available dependencies. That could be definitely something we could say. If you're not sure what the dependency is, go and try to find out by yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I kind of imagine that for people wanting to use this on their own internal code bases, where nothing about a closed, like, again, we're not like training this on your internal code. We're not doing any training, and we're certainly not training it on your internal proprietary code. Um, but you'd want to be able to ask and answer it questions, not just about like the open source libraries you use, but your own internal code base. That I can picture that even if it isn't there right now, one thing that recipes can retrieve all of that information, so we could always just add in a recipe that goes and produces a mapping of, I don't know, the dependency coordinates to the types provided by those coordinates, and then that could be used to inform subsequent interactions with Moddy on a proprietary code base.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is this something that's like available right now? Like, can Moderne customers try this out right now, or is this still just something that we're just kind of demoing?
It's still demoing. It's definitely like a hidden path right now.
Mhm.
But
Ooh, a
it's
hidden path suggests that if
mhm.
someone knows how to
Yeah, if
find
you
it, they
can
can
find
get
it, use it. Like we said, it has to plug in with an LLM that the customer
right.
would have. So there's that definitely discussion to have.
They would
But
have to supply an API key and all that kind of thing. So it's the bring your own
exactly,
part.
and if there's different URLs depending on how it's being hosted. So that's main discussion. But right now we have it available on the platform on that hidden path. But if you ask me nicely, I will tell you what it is. And so it's still, there's still some iterations to have, but the big chunk is there, and it's pretty cool to use. I've been using it already internally.
Nice. Do you think we'll end up integrating this in any capacity into our IDE plugin? Because I could see, like right now, you can go talk to Copilot. I could or other, your preferred coding buddy. I could see, either augmenting those or bringing this in to have recipe augmented stuff directly in your IDE.
Hmm.
Do you know if that's in the cards?
I think that it's a little bit of the same of like open rewrite versus modern, and like modern is so fast because it has those already pre-parsed LSDs and pre-built LSDs,
Of course.
serializable. So that's going to be the part where there might be a trade-off here, just in latency of running recipes, but it's
Wow.
not something I'm against. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, cool.
All
Any
right.
any other stuff that you want to show off, Justine, or maybe that you're curious about, Tim?
Um, I think maybe good to for the folks that want to know more is that we also have a blog on this exact topic. So I'll figured
Yeah.
I'll share that link with you all in the chat.
Oops. We both went to click the show button, and I ended up hiding it. Sorry, Tim.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, this is
So that
also
should
if
be
you.
popping up. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
it's just if you go to the moderne.ai blog page, it's the most recent one, so it's right there at the top. If you don't feel like transcribing that whole long URL.
Exactly. And keep watching our LinkedIn, keep watching our YouTube. There's gonna be more updates to come.
And you're surely going to be talking about this plus whatever we get done in the interim at the Code Remix Summit, right? Like,
For
you've got a
sure.
speaking slot, I'm sure.
Is it not the Justine Presents Moddy conference for 3 days? I
I mean,
misunderstood.
that's kind of been my assumption.
Yes, absolutely. There would for sure be a lot to talk about there.
We're still getting sign off on like the props you want to use on stage, but apart from that, we should be good.
So toast, chainsaw, butter.
Yeah, I can do a live chainsaw buttering, but only if a whole lot of people buy tickets, right? If it's not sold
Yes.
out, we won't have the discretionary budget for chainsaws and butter tubs and lots of plastic sheeting to cover every surface in. Just imagine the poor hotel people seeing us bring in the chainsaw. Like, what are these idiots doing?
They'll never have us again. We'll have to find a new venue next year.
Get banned from an entire chain of hotels
Yeah,
and conference centers. It'll be memorable.
it will. Looking forward to it. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for
Appreciate it,
coming.
as always.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be back in a couple weeks. Each time there's something new. It's too fun not to share.
Absolutely. And Tim and I can never pass on bringing on a fun guest, because we don't have to separately prepare something, which I love.
Absolutely.
On that note, I think we have a special guest next week. So
Yeah. It seems like Shannon is going to be able to join us to talk about the adding Gradle Kotlin script support. So look forward to that. I think it'll be his third time on Code Remix, which this is probably your like third or fourth time. I think
It's
you
my
and
third.
Shannon.
We're really neck to neck.
Yeah, I think that's probably why he had to come on. Didn't want to lose the crown
The
for
lead.
our most frequent guest to you. Like let the Shannon versus Justine rivalry continue, or be established in the first place, as neither of you probably knew you were rivals before I said it just now.
I love it. Now I'm going to start working weekends and evenings until 12 p.m. just to catch up, get more stuff to present.
So later on, someone asks you why all of your the last slide of all of your PowerPoints is "Take that, Shannon." Like,
Yeah.
Shannon,
Who's Shannon?
well, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us, Justine. Look forward to seeing you and Tim and all of our viewers at Code Remix. And man, it's just like, is it like 1 month now? No, it's 2 months. 2 months until May. But yeah, it is like almost exactly 2 months. So get your tickets now.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. All right, bye everyone.
Bye, Justine.
See you soon. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks all.
Join us in Miami for Code Remix Summit. Attend hands-on sessions with some of the best industry experts. Looking for immediate ROI by attending? Bring a relevant business case and work directly on solutions affecting your organization in the hack track. Bring your problem, bring your laptop, and walk away with work done for your boss. Register today for Code Remix Summit.